Hello, hello. Welcome back. Hey, Cary. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here too.
I can't wait for this one. I think this is going to be a really good one. So tell me a little bit about you and what makes you you. What's your story?
Um, well, I have many stories, I guess. I think that we all do have many stories, but I'll just give a quick overview. I'm currently in my 50s and I have three kids. They're teenagers now. I have experienced divorce, postpartum depression, Lyme disease, and I feel like all those experiences in my life have made me stronger and really opened me up to like who I am. And the other thing I realized is we're all just evolving with all of our experiences that happen in our life. We're just becoming more and more our authentic self. And it's been a journey. And I'm really looking forward to the next 50 years of my life.
I know, isn't it interesting how when you look back at things that you've been through and you're like, whoa, at the time you're just like, man, this is so hard. And then when you look back, you're like, oh, that's why. Kind of paints you a little picture.
Yes. And I'm learning patience
Hmm.
and that some things do take time. And I've gone through some things where I've been told, well, it's going to take a year to get through this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how can I do this? And then all of a sudden it passes and I'm okay and
Hmm.
everything's okay. And I've grown and the situation got better or what have you. But I'm learning patience still.
I feel like that's a lifelong journey because it'll be patience with the different thing, you know? It's like always showing up for
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And the lesson of being present, um, which people say a lot, but really, what does it mean? And I feel like it's letting go of attachment of what you desire and just saying, okay, here it is, right here and now. What can I do in my life to bring some joy and happiness without wanting too much of an outcome that's may or may not happen?
That's a really good one. That's a really good one. Like, my hairs are standing up on my arm when you said it. Like, that's a really good one. Tell me a little bit about, like, your momhood. Share a story about your life as a mom and what you've
Mm.
learned.
Um, I've learned a lot and still learning. So, like I said, I have three teenagers. They're ages 15, 17, and 19. My oldest is out of the house, and um, the teenage years are challenging. I actually say all stages, at least for me, have been challenging. And I always wanted, a beautiful, perfect family. And in my head, I pictured it as being like this very easy thing for me. I always felt like it was going to be easy for me to be a mother. But turns out it wasn't. And I had to go through some learning experiences about myself and realizing, first of all, there's no such thing as perfect. And we all go through stuff and our kids go through stuff. And it's a journey. But I learned a lot of letting go and letting go of control. So, in my experience, I didn't have the best childhood. I had some abuse in my childhood. I grew up in a family situation where my dad didn't love my mom, and I dreamed of them getting divorced. And I wanted to create a perfect family for myself, and that didn't happen. And what I realized is it's not my job to fix everybody's life or make their life perfect. What it is just really to be present and be happy and to love. And I think that's my biggest learning is letting go of that control of making my kids feel like they have an amazing family or a childhood. So I really had to let that go and just say, well, they're on their own journey and it's not my job to make that happen.
Yeah, that's a big, big deal. Like when you said, "It's not my job to fix it." That is such a huge hurdle as for moms because we're the caretakers. We're the ones who are, taking care of them and like, like when they're little, if they fall, it's like, "Oh, like let's get a Band-Aid. Let's do this." And how, you know what I mean? Like we're the ones who like patch it up, you know? It's kind of funny that I said that, but like patch it up with a Band-Aid, but then patch it up also like when they're older, right? Like it and then to have a realization and letting go of this like painted picture, if you will, of what your expectation was, but like also having three people that have their own expectations. And you're like, but wait, this is my picture. It's like you can spend your time fighting with that, and then you end up fighting with them, or like stepping back and really looking, is this something I really need to fix? Is this something that I should be, like you said, like present and there and watching and being like, oh, and seeing how it works? That's actually really hard to
It
do.
is hard. It is very hard.
And I commend you for doing that because, like, being aware of that and taking the time to step back and just being like, wait, let's look and see, how all of my people are and how they're responding to things. And like you said, they have their own journey and their own ways. And so you're like more or less looking at it as how can they fit into this, ideal family situation that you wanted. It may not be the same picture as yours, but how can they fit in, which is so awesome. That is so awesome to do. And it's very hard.
It is hard. And I mean, like I said, I'm 50 and I'm still working on it. But um, I also had in my head that if I was a good fixer, then I would be a good mom. Like
Mhm.
those, and because I looked at other people and I'm like, well, they must be doing this and they look like a good mom and their kids like them. So this whole comparison stuff too is just, you got to get that out the window.
Mhm. Yes.
Because everybody, and I see this in my business as well, everybody has their own stuff.
Mhm.
Everybody does. We don't go through life and get a pass, and this is everything's just beautiful. We have our own demons, we have our stuff that we need to work through. So it's really none of our business what anybody else is doing. It's just you
Mhm.
got to go back to what am I doing? How am I being? How am I thinking? How am I feeling? And then just move from there. Um, it's really interesting. I've had some current experiences with my kids that at first kind of triggered me, and then I kind of just let my ego go and step back and said, okay, let's let this happen. So my 17-year-old was getting bullied at school. And she
Mhm.
finally came to me and she was crying and she was talking to me about this. This little feisty little girl was almost attacking my daughter. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to help. And she said, Mom, I'm okay. I want to talk to the principal and I'm going to deal with it. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, do you want me to do a healing session with you? And she's like, no, I don't need that. But she said to me, she goes, Mom, I know what you do. And if I need you, I'll come find you. And I
Mhm.
had to like really just let that go because it was really challenging. So I'm like, I know I can help her through this, but she doesn't want it at the moment. She knows I'm here. Let it go. Let my ego go. And she took it into her own hands and dealt with the situation. And so I have to step back and be proud of her for doing that instead of me running in and trying to fix it. So that was a good experience for me. A reminder, like all
Yeah.
these are reminders of just it's okay to let go. They're gonna be okay.
Well, and be proud of you too, because that's like a whole thing to work through as a mom when your baby's hurting and you're like, "I wanna make them feel better," because you don't like, we love them so much that we don't want them to go through, like, we don't want them to go through the pain and all of the things, but they're not learning if they don't do it, and so it's harder for us, like, they have their situation, and then it's like, "Okay, I know it's hard for you, but this is really hard for me because I can't swoop in and save you and, like, patch it up. I can't patch it up." Um, but I
That is
love
so
that you
true.
said that I know. I love that you said that, like, how even in it, like talking to her, asking her questions and being curious about what she needs. And good for her for being able to do it herself too, because that takes a lot of courage as well, especially in that scenario, being bullied. And then, I'm really curious what was going through her mind on, because she probably had to make that decision. Like, do I talk to somebody? Do I have, my mom do it? How am I going to do this? And so I feel like that's was such an awesome step for her and such a big boost that for her to go and take care of that herself, but also, like telling you and reassuring you in a way, like, I know where you are. And if I need you, I will call on you for help. And then it like the other tier is you like, okay, I'm gonna wait right here for you if you need me, but it's really hard for me not to like, so it's like be proud of yourself too, because that takes a lot to hold on a second and take a step back and be like, this is a learning time. And it's okay for the pieces to fall apart because she's learning and she's doing her thing, which is amazing because the overall outcome for all parties involved are so much better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just another lesson. So I had another experience with my son who's 15 and he's been going to therapy, which he asked for, which I was like amazed.
That's
And
awesome.
so he went to his therapist. I sent the therapist an email and said, "Can you check in on this?" And then she shared it with him. And he was so mad at me. And he's like, "Mom, I will ask her my questions. This is my therapy, not yours." And I was like, "Okay, here we go again. Here's another lesson. All right, I'll step back."
I think that that's really funny too, though, that the question was asked and he was fully aware, like, "Oh, that's my mom. That's not the
Yes.
therapist. That's my mom." Like, that's kind of funny because you're like, "Shoot." Like
Yes. Yes.
you were trying to get, like, "Oh, just, maybe you should chat about this." And he's like, "No, mom, you're trying to come in a therapy session. That's cute."
Well, this whole fix it mentality is, again, from my childhood, from when you come from an abusive situations, you lose control. So what do you want to do is you can control anything that you can. I want to make everybody happy all the time. And that's my thing. And I'm still working through it. Like it's not my job anymore to make my partner happy, my kids happy. It's not my job. Um, but I still have to consciously be aware of it when I'm doing it because I can slip right back into it. Like I
Mhm.
need to step into this. And that's where we really have to take some time to evaluate or just be present enough to see what we're doing instead of just being on autopilot all the time.
Yes.
So it's just recognizing what we're doing and the why. Why are we doing this? And a lot of times we're doing things out of fear, and that's not a good place to be. We should be doing things out of love, right?
Right.
Not out of fear.
Yeah, it's like we're responding to also because we've had so many more years, experience. And
Hmm.
it's like we know the outcome, but we've also learned through our experiences. And so it's hard for us not to do the whole protect and stick our kids in a bubble and like,
Yeah.
no, don't do that. And just if you just listen to me. But in a way, it's kind of keeping their human experience from them to learn to be, what they need to be here. It's like
Yes.
we're kinda
Yeah.
like the guides, like, we're kinda like the bumpers, like, they get to bumpers when you're bowling, like, we're the parents that are like the bumpers, and it's like, "Okay, they're gonna go this way," and you're kinda like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" But either way, they're gonna make their own path, whether it's zigzagging, straight down, whatever it is, they're making their own path, and we're just kinda like, "Okay,
Exactly. Exactly. And then we have
okay."
to remember not to be like, well, I told you so.
Yes, yes, I know. I've also experienced that with my teenager, and it's I feel the urge to say it, but I don't, but I'll feel the urge
Mm,
like, then I'm like, "Oh, nope, this is" like you said, "This is my learning for not saying that." Like, this is where my
yeah.
lesson lies.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so crazy. It's so crazy how much you learn growing up in the system that you grew up in, and then when you have kids, it's like, "Oh." It's like the lessons that you need to learn are going to be there, and your kids are gonna show you.
Yes. ready or not.
Yeah, exactly. Ready or not, here we come. This is happening. Yes. Yes. Well, what are some things that you are really passionate about?
Well, I feel like a lot of people do say this, but I am passionate about my work. So the work that I do helping women heal through trauma has been remarkable. And I find myself wanting to work all the time, which I know that's not healthy for me, but I love to see people transform where their past was making them feel victimless or like a victim or powerless, and they can switch into more of a power position and then not be triggered by their past anymore. And I just love, 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 love to see that growth in women. And I really also love to bring women together because I think we are so powerful together. It's
Mhm.
just amazing. We have great energy that can just lift each other up. And when we come together, it's beautiful and it's powerful. It's like,
Yes.
you know, I think we're natural healers, so we can heal ourselves and heal others when they're ready. So I just love bringing people together in that way.
Tell me a little bit more about when you say working with trauma from the past, and helping them through that. Like, what can you give me an example of what you do for that? Like, how does that work?
Sure. So the work that I do is mainly in the subconscious. So when we are born between the ages of 0 and 18, that's when we build our subconscious belief systems. So it's what we believe about ourselves and others, relationships, and just the outside world. So if we are brought up in an environment that's unsafe or bad things happen to us, we take those subconscious beliefs and they get embedded in us. And then we turn into adults and we have these negative patterns that are trapped in our subconscious. And most of what we do, say, and think is based on our subconscious beliefs, which is kind of surprising because we think we're aware, we think we're making our own decisions. I mean, it is still us, but we're aware of it, but it's actually the opposite. And if somebody has gone through some trauma in their childhood, for instance, let's just say they had an abusive situation, they're going to feel powerless, or they may feel powerless. And what I do is I take them through a breathing exercise, which releases the programs that are stuck in their subconscious so that they can step into their own power. Part of this is releasing the subconscious negative beliefs. And then the other part is taking action, conscious action. So if you are, let's say, always attracted to, like, say, narcissistic behavior, if you do the work, the subconscious work, and clear it up, but then you take the conscious action and call that person again, like that's where you need to stop that behavior consciously and subconsciously. And it takes work and it takes time, but that is um it's it's difficult work, but it's also easy, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
It's like you're just releasing some thoughts and feelings, but it's hard to face it sometimes. It's hard
Mhm.
to face it. Like I brought this energy in, or I continued this energy and I didn't stop it. So we carry a lot of guilt and a lot of shame for our actions. So it's it's tough work to accept what we've done in the past. And it's also hard work to step into a new life that you may be accustomed to. So you may be accustomed to being overpowered by a man or feeling insecure. So that was your safety for so long. And now you're stepping out to say, okay, what is it like to be powerful? Well, that's scary. So it's all interesting how this energy and our thoughts can be so powerful when it is just a thought. If you think about
Mhm.
it, if you break it all down, it's just a thought and a feeling. And the good news is you do have control over it. So we go through clearing sessions, and then I guide women on how to step forward.
That's awesome. That's really powerful. That's
It's
great that
been
you do that.
it's been beautiful, and I say I do the work myself as well. So I step through it myself. So I'm very knowledgeable on how hard it is.
Right,
How it's
right, and the
hard.
process, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
But the reward is so great. And I always use the example of I was married to a narcissist, and it was not a great time in my life. I was scared a lot of the times and powerless. I felt powerless for sure. But after doing this work, I had to spend a whole day in court with him in the same room. And I didn't feel a thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did it. Like, I did it. I stepped into my power. He doesn't have control over me. And I did it. And that's what's so exciting is when you step into that power and you can say, yeah, that no longer triggers me. And that's an amazing thing.
The feeling is almost like you wanna just climb to the top of a mountain and just scream it from, the mountaintops when you realize that you've broken free from something like that.
That's so funny that you said that because I just downloaded that image to use on my website
I love
because I
that.
was like, that is how I feel, right? You get up on the mountain and you're screaming, you're just like, yeah, it's that real innate feeling in your body where it's like letting the mama roar. So,
Yeah, that's great, I like that, yes. Yes, that is so true. Well, out of everything that we have talked about today, I always like to ask my guests what their superpower is. I believe as moms, we have many I call capes that we put on and wear, and each one of us is unique and different in our own way. And so I always like people to share what their superpower is.
now I believe my superpower is knowing that people, events, situations come into my life so I can grow. And
Awesome.
I don't take them personally. Like that's my springboard to say, okay, spirit is bringing this to me, and now I can do something about it.
I love that.
It's
I
that
love
awareness. That's my
Yeah.
superpower,
I
conscious
love
awareness.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you for sharing with us today. Thank you for telling us all these good, juicy little tidbits. And thank you for
Was
being here.
yes, it was so much fun. Thank you for having me.